Well, it's time now for a look at the day's top business news, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Brian Quinn from our business desk. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Axie.
Now, here at France 24, we're dedicating a large part of our coverage today to the French restaurant industry that has, of course, been hit extremely hard by the pandemic. Brian, take us through what French restaurants have been experiencing these last few months.
Well, Haxie, the French restaurant groups have dubbed their industry the biggest losers of the coronavirus crisis. And it's not hard to understand why. Now, between lockdowns this spring and fall and the ongoing closure that's now slated to last at least until mid-February, industry groups estimate that the sector has lost up to 34 billion euros last year alone. That's more than half its yearly total, with more certain to come. And nearly 2/3 of French restaurants and cafes say they fear they will have to shut down definitively. The president of one of France's top hospitality unions says 50,000 businesses face imminent failure. That represents some 250,000 potential lost jobs. The French government has stepped in with a paid furlough scheme that covers 100% of the salaries of idled workers, a stop on social charges for restaurant owners, and a solidarity fund that pays out either 20% of average sales or 10,000 euros per month. Well, that fund has until now been off limits for big chains, but the government wants to expand it to include businesses with up to 5,000 employees. The aid plan had also previously been capped at 200,000 euros per business. The government now looking to raise that ceiling up to 3 million euros. The big question, though, is will even that be enough to save businesses, Haxie?
And of course, Brian, the restaurant sector is by no means alone in feeling dismayed by last night's announcements from French Prime Minister Jean Castex.
That's right. Business owners here in France dismayed but mostly unsurprised by the decision to maintain current restrictions until mid-February at least. Some, though, had been hoping to reopen. Those, of course, very disappointed. Wasim Cornet and our colleagues at France Télévisions have the story.
It was only a few minutes into the press conference before the dreaded news came through.
La perspective d'une réouverture en janvier n'est pas réaliste et sera d'ores et déjà reportée à minima jusqu'à mi-février.
A decision that was expected, but difficult to stomach nonetheless.
Le gouvernement continuera à soutenir économiquement l'ensemble des secteurs.
Alexandre Gazerian now worries this will be the final straw for his restaurant and thousands of others.
On a énormément d'attentes et puis on a l'impression à chaque fois d'être mis de côté. Je pense qu'à un moment donné, les restaurateurs en ont ras-le-bol.
This theater director was also hoping for some good news, but the world of culture will also have to be patient. Movie theaters, museums, and entertainment venues will remain closed for now.
Pourquoi doit-on rester fermé alors que de très très grandes enseignes sont ouvertes? La prudence, oui, mais il faut qu'elle soit cohérente.
A similar mood in the country's ski resorts. Owners there are worried that uncertainty today means there are fewer people booking trips for the February school holidays.
Si on n'a pas une réponse maximum le 23, tout dernier délai, les vacances de février seront catastrophiques.
The government is yet again asking for more patience, but for these business owners, patience is starting to show its limits.
Well, time now to have a look at how things are looking on the markets today. Brian, take us through it.
Well, I see Asian index is mostly gaining in Friday trade. Kospi and Seoul getting a big bounce as shares in Hyundai soar over 22% on news that the South Korean car maker is in talks with Apple to develop new electric vehicles together. Samsung shares also getting a big boost after they announced a 25% rise in fourth quarter profits. Chinese indexes mixed on Friday amid more bad news for Chinese telecoms firms, with index giant MCSI following the lead of the New York Stock Exchange in delisting the shares of three major companies, that to comply with an executive order from Donald Trump signed last year.
And finally, for business, the 737 MAX debacle continuing to haunt US plane maker Boeing, Brian.
Well, actually, Boeing has agreed to pay $2.5 billion to settle criminal charges in the U.S. The Justice Department there had accused the plane maker of hiding information about its MCAS flight control software from safety regulators. Well, that software is blamed for a pair of deadly crashes that killed 346 people. Now, of that settlement, nearly $1.8 billion will go to airlines affected by the subsequent grounding of the 737 MAX. $500 million is going to victims' families, with the rest being paid to the government as a penalty. It is not the end of the saga, however. There is still at least one major civil lawsuit brought by victims' families still pending against Boeing, so we'll have to see how that turns out in the coming months.
Brian Quinn from our business desk, thank you very much.